Hi everyone, so welcome to Investing for Value. So if having a virus just rampaging throughout the world and then having like stock markets drop around the world, if that wasn't enough, and if that wasn't like, creating a bit of interest in your life, don't worry. Oil prices just dropped by 33%. So, that's got to make you a bit excited in some way because if you own some airlines, all of a sudden those airlines can buy hedging for their oils. They can buy at basic $30 in the future or even now. And in your airlines are gonna, it kind of softens the blow for airlines, though it doesn't really help when you don't have many passengers. Hey, it's a bit of a catch-22. So, how are things going now? We've got the virus just spreading everywhere. We've got stock markets panicking. And now we've got, and mind you, we still have an existing trade war. Like, it's really funny that we don't actually hear anything about this trade war anymore, even though it's still happening. And then now to just like build on that trade war with the virus, and then now we have like this oil war between basically Saudi Arabia and Russia. So yeah, like as you can see, oil fell the most since 1991. So think about that. That's almost 30 years ago, which is an incredible amount of time. And it kind of like talks about, you know, how like how messed up things are right now. So Saudi Arabia started a price war with Russia because Russia just can't. Russia came to the table on the OPEC and they're like, no, we're not cooperating. Saudi Arabia got really annoyed and they're like, well, if no one's cooperating, we're just going to do our own thing. And Saudi Arabia has this like pent up oil supply because they're like, well, originally we were just going to try to work with everyone, but since some people aren't going to work with us, well, we're just going to do our own thing and we're going to just crash this market because we've got so much oil that the cost of storing oil is killing our inventory. Because at the end of the day, like if you know like any company that has a large inventory, there's a huge cost associated. And Saudi Arabia won't stop producing and they won't start hoarding. So then they're like, well, if no one's coming to this table to agree on pricing, we're not going to like hold our supplies anymore because this inventory cost is killing us. Not only is the price killing us, the inventory cost is killing us. So now Saudi Arabia is like, okay, we're just gonna unleash all this oil, and now the markets are just like, boom, 33% down for oil and its futures. Yeah, so it's good for like all the companies that need to use oil, but it means a lot of American companies are going to suffer because American companies, their cost to produce oil is actually higher than Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia is, yeah, that's by doing this, it's a losing game for the energy sector. It's great for the consumer. It's like if you see your fuel prices at the pump start to go down, you know why. And I bet you're gonna smile when that happens because like you might have just lost a lot on the stock market, but at least your fuel price is down somewhat, right? Unless you're investing in the right sectors, and the right sectors are literally like biotechs, or as you can see, gold. Gold is high, 1,700, yeah, which is good. Or there's also other companies. If you would like me to run through like a list of those, there's quite a lot of sectors that do benefit, like say like online, though tech is being sold down because people are like, we're gonna fear, so like tech is good, but I mean, there's still you can still wait it out because people are just selling to either conserve cash or they're buying the companies that are gonna do really well in this environment. And like you could buy biotechs, but biotechs can be a little bit risky because you could buy something trying to make the vaccine, but you're not guaranteed revenues. So you gotta look at the wider picture and see how things go. But since I'm making this about oil, let's just look at the oil situation. So in terms of oil, we've got other articles, oil crash, stock futures crash. So like you're like, oh no, the market's just crashing again. So like if you own ExxonMobil, like if you own Exxon, like Chevron, oh you probably just going, what just happened? Not only is the stock market going to be down, oil's going to be down. So that's like, and originally maybe people were just going to sell off oil stocks anyway, and now this really compounds it, so it really doesn't help. But you must be asking, is this a buying opportunity? Well, considering Saudi Arabia is like making a commitment to unleash their supply, this is going to last for a little bit longer than just a temporary day. So I'd wait. I'd really, really wait because a lot of these oil companies, particularly US oil companies, are really going to suffer. So just like see what the long game is. Currently, there is no rush to get into these things. Like a lot of people are being seduced by dividends. Like everyone's going like, oh, look at all these dividends everywhere. Like if I buy this company, I'm cherry picking all these nice, nice dividends. But the problem is, it's no point buying a company for a dividend if it's not going to be sustainable. It has to be sustainable first. And if the stock price is going to drop, the drop, is going to be a lot more than a dividend should get. So right now, I think most people should probably just wait it out, hold some cash on the sideline, and just wait. And I know it's difficult. It's really difficult, especially if you're like impatient, which is most of the world. Whenever prices drop, everyone's like bargain. But then it's also like, well, yeah, things aren't necessarily getting better. So prices will continue to drop as they go. And I think it's probably a wise idea to just wait unless you know some really good companies that you want to invest in. Which there are some good companies, mind you. There are some sectors that are benefiting. Say like retail, supermarkets, right? Supermarkets aren't actually getting less business. If you look at supermarkets, they are not getting less business. So when you kind of look at companies that are going around, they're not getting less business. So that's kind of a situation where you gives you an opportunity to look around the market. And also like the world's largest oil company is down 9%. And mind you, this company is larger than Apple. It's like the valuation is like 1.6 trillion US dollars, or about 6 trillion in the Saudi currency. Well, yeah, so, something, if you didn't think life was interesting in the markets, well, this just adds an extra spin. And, if you're holding cash, you're just like sitting back and grabbing your popcorn and just really having a good time watching because you're like, well, I'm just gonna watch. And then when markets are perfectly priced to come back up, then that's when you win, right? So you got to look at someone like Warren Buffett, who's holding so much cash that he's going to be laughing his way to the bank soon because he's going to be able to buy all these good companies at such low prices. Though not really low prices yet, but they'll probably come a bit lower as things go. And as you can see, Putin just sparked an oil price war with Saudi Arabia, and US energy companies may be the victims. Yes, that's right. This article is like basically on point. The companies that will suffer because of this will be the US companies, and it's not going to look pretty. I'm just going to keep watching as things go. I don't really advise buying oil companies right now because this is like, firstly, you're going to be heavily impacted in so many directions that I'm not even sure how you play this. Like, if you buy an oil company, the only upside is the dividend, but even then, you're risking the dividend being cut, and in the minute dividend's cut, the price is dropping. Oh, I don't see like a really nice upside yet, though but sooner or later there is going to be an upside, and I bet Warren Buffett is watching this because he likes oil. He likes oil. He's brought into oil companies before. Usually the refineries because um, they're not producing, but they're the middleman. The middleman's the least affected in some sense because they just get their margin, they buy it, they get their margin, they push it out again, they're happy. So you just have to. I think Warren Buffett might be a buyer in these markets because he's like literally right now in oil, there looks to be blood on the street. or oil on the street, you know. Literally, price of oil is so cheap that you could just like buy a barrel and put it on the street, and everyone's just gonna come out and running and buying, you know. It's like, oh, oil on the street, that'll be cheap. Yeah, so I think this is starting to build as an opportunity, but you don't necessarily want to buy it unless it's selling at a really good price. I probably need to research some oil companies. So like, if you've got like a specific oil company you want me to look at, just comment below. But don't like shove like 5 or 10 at me because like, given time limits, I can only uh, choose one or two, and then that makes it very time possible, especially in these pressing times. You want make the use of it. Yeah, or if you have any other companies you want to look at, just comment below, or if you just have a comment about what the current situation like. Is it crazy? Like this must be a crazy situation to you, especially if you're not well. Yeah, especially if you're not 50, really, because like if you haven't seen a lot of these things, it does feel crazy. But if you've seen these things happen before, you might be like, oh, well, I saw it coming, you know. So that's kind of the really good part about wisdom and experience, that you see these things coming, you know what's happening next, and you've got the wisdom to go, I know what to buy next. Yeah, so this is kind of other things. Like I don't think I've personally really been in the markets long enough to see a 33% drop. Like I'm still kind of thinking like this is like a bit crazy. But the world's a bit crazy right now, so there's no justification. But you're talking about two countries that should be adults in a sense, because even when the price was in like about $45, Saudi Arabia, Russia, they were hurting. Even the US was hurting. And then now you think about the pricing being at 30, like everyone's like no one's making money. Everyone's literally like digging it out just to give away. Like they might as well just be like, bring your bucket and you just come and grab some oil. It's probably cheaper to just let people come and grab it and take it on their own, because like right now, bringing it out of the ground by themselves and then storing it, then shipping it all the way around the world to sell, no one's making money. Literally, they're just giving away the stuff for free just to keep their market share. Like literally, it's just to keep their market share. This is why companies won't back down, because they're like, we want to keep our market share, so we're not backing down. And the same with airlines. If you've seen like how crazy it is in Europe, all these airlines are actually like flying empty planes, because even though they cancelled their routes, they're like, if we don't fly our planes there, we lose that spot, we lose that time slot. And I'm like, that's kind of crazy. Like you're flying an empty plane just so you don't lose your market share or your positioning in certain, like like airports and all that. Yeah, so it's pretty strange, but at the end of the day, like as Amazon really proves, market share is the thing, and is a very strong thing in this world. And if you're a big oil player, you don't want to lose your market share, because the minute you lose your market share, you could potentially never gain it back. So that's kind of like this really, difficult situation, the big catch-22, because like your price is dropping, you don't want to play like you don't want to like cut, because if say like Saudi Arabia cuts but Russia goes, I'm increasing and I'm going to take your market share, things are dire. Or if Russia goes, oh, I'm cutting, then Saudi Arabia goes like, oh, we've got so much supply, we're going to just like push it all out and we're going to take their market share. So like no one's backing down, no one wants to lose market share, and the price is going down, and still no one's backing down. So imagine how crazy that is. But I watch this how it plays out. I don't think there's a rush to get in here. Like you, yeah, like I mean, it's a really good opportunity. It's really bargain pricing right now. But we can't tell the future, which is the difficult part. I'd rather buy things when they're starting to come off their lows, and then you're in a safer position. Right now, if you buy, I mean, you could potentially do really well because it could hit the bottom and you could come back up. But what if this isn't the bottom and you buy and then head further? And if your portfolio's in the red, I mean, you're gonna have a real bad day tonight, or whenever really. So for your sanity and for your quality of sleep, I'd say hold some cash on the side. You can't earn all the money in the world. Don't take unnecessary risk. There's better plays than oil right now, especially when you've got two countries that are being very irrational. You think markets are irrational now? Countries led by potentially, like insane leaders, because they're being very emotional. You'd hope the world could, work together. So Saudi Arabia to hike oil output above 10 million barrels per day in April. So like this is April. So this is what I mean. If you got to the end of this video and you saw this part, this is actually quite a vital part, which this article was quite new, so I didn't quite spot this. But in April, so yeah, like I reaffirm what I said. There is really no, there's no rush in this game, especially now this is April. I'd literally wait till end of April or even May before I make a conclusive decision whether I want to even touch this oil, touch these companies, because it's not a good time. It's not a good time. But until then, yeah, just let me know if you've got any questions. Perfectly happy to talk about these things. Until then, good luck investing, everyone.